Hey guys, sorry for the little bit of technical difficulties right there, but we're back. We're right here on Bolts Breakdown. Brian Burns, beat writer for TampaBayLightning.com. Jay Recher, 620 WDAE. Appreciate everybody for joining us today. We got a pretty full show, Burnsy. We'll talk about the Lightning's loss to the Senators. We'll also talk about the upcoming game tonight against the Buffalo Sabres. They're playing much better under their head coach, Phil Housley, one of the best American defensemen that has ever played this game. If you started the playoffs today, they would actually be the second wild card, which is kind of crazy. But they got some good young talent there, so we'll get into that as well. And then, of course, what happened last night, to a really nice moment from the Tampa Bay Lightning, inducting the first guy to get his number retired from the team, but also just good to see him get into the Hall of Fame. We're talking about Martin St. Louis. Really cool to see a lot of the players there last night, as well as John Cooper and some of the other guys in the support staff and for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So really good stuff there. We'll get into that in a second. Do you want to do the breaking news now, or what do you want to do? You want to do it now, or you want to talk about the last game? It's up to you. We'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, we can do breaking news now.
Let's do the breaking news now.
It's already out.
It's already out, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, Erik Cernak. A lot of people thought he might make this team out of training camp, was one of the last cuts, but he's been playing well down at Syracuse. He has just been recalled. It happened.
Wow.
10 a.m. I'm thinking it probably has something to do with the upper body injury to Anton Strawman. But you got to think, I mean, the last time they had an injury to Hedman, they brought up Gauntz from Syracuse. He didn't
Was it
get
lefty?
Didn't get in the game.
Lefty, righty kind of thing? Is that the reason why you think it was Gauntz and not Cernak the first time?
I think it was more of just an emergency situation. They knew they really weren't going to use him.
Okay.
And they wanted Cernak to get the games down in Syracuse. Now, in this situation, and with Gauntz, he's more of a veteran guy. He doesn't necessarily need the games. With Cernak coming up, I think that's a pretty clear signal. Like, they're not bringing him up just to sit him.
Exactly.
I think at some point on this trip, I don't know if it's going to be tonight in Buffalo, but I would think at some point on this trip, he's going to get into the lineup. It's kind of interesting to me. Like, who do you take out of the lineup, though, among those blue liners? I don't think Slater Cuckoo, has done anything to warrant, being benched or to being benched in favor of playing Erik Cernak tonight. So it'll be interesting to see. Do they go 11-7? Do they bring somebody else out, maybe one of the more veteran guys, and give them a little bit of a rest? Not sure. Maybe they go 11-7. I don't know. They
did that many times last year, the last couple of years. That's John Cooper's not afraid to be able to mix the pairings up, and the guys play so well together, depending, regardless of who they're playing alongside of them. So it's really good stuff there. But very interesting to see Cernak being called up, and like you said, Burnsy, they're not going to call him up if he's not going to play. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. He's getting games. He's coming up to play. He's not coming up as like an emergency situation. He's going to sit the bench. Like, they want him playing. They want to see what he can do, and I think we'll see him at some point on this road trip.
So when Erik Cernak gets called up, obviously it's announced at 10 o'clock today, but what does that entail for him? Like, when did he – I know obviously you may not know the exact specifics of him, but when does he typically, or a player like that, typically find out? And how, I mean, you're in Buffalo, so I mean, if they're in Syracuse, it's probably the closest NHL team.
Yeah, quick trip for them to get over there, and maybe that's part of the situation too, where they could just get them over there quickly and be in Buffalo for that game, and then they go to Pittsburgh. So again, that's not too far away, but I would imagine he probably found out yesterday, or this was kind of in the works yesterday, and they got him to Buffalo and did what they needed to do travel wise to make sure he's in Buffalo for that game. And then we find out about it today, but those wheels have already been set in motion, like, well before we get the announcement.
Pretty cool to see Erik Cernak, and like you mentioned before, a lot of people thought that he was going to be able to make the team out of camp. Played well enough, and I'm sure on other teams he might have been playing in the NHL this season. Cernak, the guy that is he came across in that trade for Ben Bishop when they traded Ben Bishop to the Kings to get over there. A big guy, right-handed shot defenseman. He's a guy that I'm sure Lightning fans are going to love. I know a lot of fans had a lot of high praise for him in the preseason, and if they didn't have those three veteran guys, he probably would be on this team. And it's a little bit of a trial run. I'm sure that it's not going to be for the whole season, because when you get Strawman back, I think it'll probably go down, because it doesn't behoove him to be the seventh defenseman and not get that action. But what does that say about Anton Strawman's injury, Burnsy? Do you think that it's one of those things where it might be a little more serious than initially thought?
I mean, I think it's probably going to be about a week. I know we talked to John Cooper after the game on Saturday, and he was asked if if it's long term or if it's going to be a week or so, and he said, "Hope not." So
Us too.
Yeah, and then yesterday, apparently, he was, some question as to whether or not Strowman would be able to get in on this 4-game road trip. So that takes you through Monday of next week when they play Nashville. So I think it's probably like a week-long thing. I think once the team gets back into Tampa Bay, I think Strowman will probably be back in the lineup. Hopefully, if all things go well with the rehab with the upper body injury. But you're going to need a guy for these next 4 games or so while they're on the road until Strowman's out. So that's why you see Erik Cernak coming up. And like you said, just a really had a great camp, really just a physically imposing guy. Like you saw him walking around, and he's very broad-shouldered. It looks a little bit like Ivan Drago.
Really?
From the Rocky
IV.
He's got kind of like that high, flat-top thing going on. But just a very physically imposing guy, a guy who looks NHL ready right now, at least physically, and played well during his stint in training camp. And more than anything, I think he just kind of set himself up for the future with the training camp that he had. It was going to be pretty hard for him to break through this season, or at least in training camp, and be part of that Lightning roster. But I think next year he's probably, as long as things continue going well in his development, I think he's with the Lightning next year, and I think that's for the full season. And this season is more about getting his feet wet in the NHL, playing well at the AHL level, being a leader on that crunch team for that crunch blue line, and just getting him some games and acclimating himself to the North American game and to the pro level.
Yeah, especially one of those things where you look at it with Cernak and go and play in Syracuse, play in every situation, play on the power play, play on the penalty kill, play late in games, be a leader for that blue line, because when he comes to this Tampa Bay Lightning team, they're not going to look for him to be a leader because you have guys already set in place that are that way, so you're not going to need him to be able to be like that, but just get the game action underneath your belt. For him to be able to do that, I think, is going to be huge. So if you're just joining us now, we just broke some news right here on Bolts Breakdown. Erik Cernak called up from the Miners, called up from Syracuse. Still don't know if he's going to be in the lineup tonight against the Sabres up in Buffalo, but Erik Cernak, I'm sure we'll talk as we get more viewers here on Bolts Breakdown about Erik Cernak and the excitement that a lot of fans out there have to see the young right-handed defenseman in the lineup. As always, Bryan Burns, Jay Recher here with you on Bolts Breakdown. Let us know where you're watching Bolts Breakdown from. Give us a shout. Let us know. Put it up on the screen there. Make sure you share this on your Facebook. Let's spread the word so everybody out there can be the Thunder. Again, Erik Cernak called up from the Miners. We'll get into more of that here in a little bit. Let's look back at the last game, Burnsy. Very surprising Saturday night. The Lightning go down 2-0. Maybe that's not surprising because they did that in the other game against Ottawa. Then they bounce right back. They score 4 unanswered, which could be a little surprising, but even more surprising, giving up 4 in a row against an Ottawa team that really, to me, kind of showed if the Lightning do have any kind of weaknesses, in my opinion, it's that lack of net front presence on defense to be able to push guys out of that front of the crease. And you heard Victor Hedman talk about it after the game, Burnsy. They got to do a better job to help Vasi out. And I think that was a huge reason why Ottawa was able to get back in that game, tie it up, and eventually win it.
Yeah, it was a little bit reminiscent of that Vancouver game, the second game of the year, where the Lightning were cruising a little bit through 2 periods. You felt like they were just going to be able to kind of put their foot on the gas pedal and extend that lead in the third period, but things just kind of fell apart. Both of those games, they gave up 4 goals in the third period, and I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from that Ottawa game is just it looked like the Lightning were cruising, looked like they were headed towards another victory. Maybe they felt the same way going into the second intermission. They were playing so well. Like you said, had recovered from that 2-0 deficit that they had in the first period and really had just dominated play since that point. They probably just expected more of the same, and I don't know that they really expected Ottawa to come out with the push that they had in the third period. Maybe they just thought the Senators were just going to lay down and let them roll through that game and see it all the way through the victory. But I think Ottawa, in the first minute of the third period, they really kind of announced that they weren't going to go away that easily. They scored a goal there. And then pretty much just took control of the game from that point. The Lightning couldn't get the puck out of their zone, like you said. The stuff around the net, the Ottawa's really good at, going behind the net, using the net as a way to generate offense, getting guys in front, and just creating a lot of havoc in front of Andrei Vasilevskiy, and that's what they were able to do so well. And it was something different that the Lightning haven't really seen this year, so they'll have to go back to the drawing board, see what they did wrong from that game, and kind of learn from it. But I think it's a little bit of an eye-opener for the Lightning in the sense that they realize, they can't just coast after they get a big lead and feel like the teams are just going to lay down for them. They're going to have to see these things all the way through.
A guy like Matthew Joseph, you got to feel for him. I mean, this is a guy that scored 2 goals in the game, but took that costly penalty, and he mentioned that after the game. Costly penalty, delay a game, flipping that puck over the glass, gave the Ottawa Senators a power play, and they really didn't look back from that. But it's a learning experience for him, and I think he's going to learn from it and get much better.
Ottawa's power play, I mean, you look
It looked solid, didn't they?
Both times the Lightning have played them. There have only been 2 games this year where the Lightning have given up multiple power play goals. Both of those have come against the Ottawa Senators.
There you go.
2 up there in
Without
Ottawa,
Erik Karlsson, too,
and then another 2 in Tampa. And a lot of, I think that one that tied it up, that came with like 4 seconds after the
4
after
seconds
the face-off
right
into the penalty. Into the penalty. So they know how to work it quick. They have found something in the Lightning's penalty kill that they've been able to exploit, and hopefully the Lightning can get that corrected for these or for this upcoming road trip.
Bryan Burns, Jay Recher here with you on Bolts Breakdown. We had somebody ask before about Anton Strawman. If you're just joining us, Erik Cernak. That's the breaking news today here on Bolts Breakdown. Erik Cernak called up from Syracuse. Not sure if he's going to be in the lineup, but what Burnsy and I were talking about before, it looks like that with him in the lineup, or him being called up, Strawman's going to be out probably for this entire road trip, you would say, right?
I mean, I would say it's, his play or whether or not he's going to be back for the road trip is somewhat in doubt. So definitely, if I would say for these first 2 games, he's probably going to be out and just kind of continue to reevaluate and see how he's recovering. But yeah, you bring Erik Cernak up, and you don't bring him up just to sit him on the bench and be an emergency guy. Like, he's coming up, and I would fully expect him to get into at least one of these games on this road trip.
Without a doubt. So Cernak in, Strawman out for now. Any word on Ernie? Because Ernie was out as well with an upper body injury.
He practiced yesterday, was wearing a regular jersey, so I would expect that he is ready or might be ready for availability tonight. And that's another reason where you might see the Lightning go
11-7,
if Ernie's out. I thought Martel played pretty well in his absence in Saturday's game, showed a lot of speed.
Yeah.
Showed a nose for goal, like really put some, I think he had 3 shots on net, really put some pressure on their goalie. You'd like to see him maybe get aim for those corners a little bit. I think all 3 of those shots were kind of right in the middle, right in the breadbasket of Ottawa's goal.
You hit the logo, bro. You're all over it.
But you got to get your feel.
That's right.
It's the first ones of the season. You got to get a feel, get a sense of where that net is, and then maybe start aiming for those corners a little bit more. But just like what he was able to bring, I thought he had some strong presence out there. Made a little bit of an impact. Had some speed. Had some shots on goal. Like to see a little bit more from him.
Without a doubt. Bryan Burns, beat writer for TampaBayLightning.com. Jay Recher, 620 WDAE. Again, let us know where you're watching Bolts Breakdown from. Put it right there on the screen. We'll do our best to shout you out and share this, especially with the big news today. Erik Cernak being called up. Share this thing on your Facebook. Let us know you shared it and where you're watching from, and also who you think's going to score the first goal tonight for the Bolts. Put it there on the screen. We'll give you a shout. Go out there. You guys like tweeting and all that stuff. Say that you heard the news first right here on Bolts Breakdown. Before we get into tonight's game against the Buffalo Sabres, let's talk about last night. Really cool to see Martin St. Louis inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Just a select group of players enshrined up there in Toronto, and such a really special moment. And then for them to announce the Lightning players and coach, and it was really cool to see them all come together to be able to watch that performance from like kind of off stage right there. Just really cool to see Marty get honored. And I want to ask you, Burnsy, what's your favorite Martin St. Louis moment?
I mean, it's got to be
the goal,
Game
right?
6 goal in 2004. I mean, that's such an iconic moment, and probably the moment that kind of put this franchise on the map.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the one that kind of announced that this team, obviously, it won a Stanley Cup 2 days later, but that's the one that they kind of made an announcement to the rest of the hockey world that this franchise is going to be here to stay and is going to make some noise. And just an iconic player. And like you said, to see the guys, I mean, that's not an easy trip. They flew into Buffalo yesterday. They had a practice at Brandon around 11 o'clock, then flew into Buffalo, probably got in around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and then bussed over to Toronto. It looked like, I saw Kucherov, Hedman, Girardi, Stamkos, basically the guys that had played, Bourne, the guys that had played with Marty St. Louis at some point during his career. You saw those guys make the bus ride up to Toronto. A lot of staffers, a lot of the training guys, Tom Mulligan.
So Nigel there, Nigel
yeah,
Kerwin.
Nigel was there. locker room guys. Breezeman was there,
Yep.
the PR guy who was there when St. Louis was playing for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So it just kind of shows you like what kind of impact that guy made, that they would take that time to make that bus ride up on a day where they could just be relaxing in their hotel room and getting ready for tonight's game against Buffalo, and then they have to make the trip back after the Hall of Fame ceremony to get back into Buffalo to prepare for tonight's game. So just good all around from the Lightning organization, really first class.
Yeah, my memory of Martin St. Louis and obviously growing up north, and I know it didn't end his tenure here in Tampa. A lot of people weren't too happy about that, but it's hard for me not to remember his time with the Rangers and remember it favorably in the way that he went there and his mom passed away, and his mom was always his rock. And I just remember him being on the bench and scoring a goal on Mother's Day, and him looking up into the sky, and Derek Brassard, who was on the Rangers at the time, now he's with Pittsburgh, put his arm around him, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was just so crazy, and so just such a great moment there. And for him to be traded to the Ranger team, I know their funeral was on an off day, and the whole team went, which meant a lot. And we say the whole team, and McDonough, Girardi, JT Miller, the guys that were there last night, were on that trip, and they traveled up to the funeral, and they were teammates with the guy for like a month, you know what I mean? And for him to make such a profound impact, again, I know a lot of fans down here weren't happy with how things ended here and how he went to New York, but from a New York side, really, really made a profound impact, and there are still a lot of fans in New York that still rock the Martin St. Louis jersey, even though he was there for like a year and a half. But just that whole Stanley Cup run for the Rangers going, and they eventually fell to the Kings, but Martin St. Louis scoring that goal on Mother's Day, scoring a goal in overtime to beat the Canadians, it was just incredible. And that guy is a surefire Hall of Famer, well-deserved. Congratulations, Marty, from Burnsy and I. And you just saw how much love he got last night, and it just showed. I mean, he's a class dude.
Great locker room guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
awesome.
probably I unfortunately wasn't in Tampa by the time that I came the season after he went to the Rangers, but from all the stories I've heard, just like such an unbelievable guy in the locker room. Like really knew how to keep the locker room loose, knew how to include everybody, took guys under his wing. I mean, Steven Stamkos has talked many times about how Marty took him under his wing and showed him how to be a superstar in the NHL. Same with guys like Victor Hedman. I mean, really had an affinity for the younger players and kind of showing them the ropes and acclimating them to the NHL life, and just a wonderful guy and well-deserved, like you said, for that Hockey Hall of Fame nomination and induction.
Bryan Burns, Jay Recher here with you on Bolts Breakdown. Again, the big news today, Erik Cernak being called up from Syracuse. No word yet if he'll be in the lineup. What's your opinion on Cernak being called up? And get some questions in. Also, let us know where you're watching Bolts Breakdown from. Put them there at the bottom of the screen. We'll do our best to shout you out. Tim Klein wants to know, any chance Matthew Joseph gets a look at the top line, or is he too important down in the third and fourth line?
Yeah, I don't think he really switched the lines up.
No, I'm not taking him away from Cirelli. Cirelli always looks for Matthew Joseph.
Yeah, I mean,
so that helps him out.
That line's really been rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was clearly the best line in the last game, and has been for maybe the last 2 or 3 games. And that's what makes this team so dangerous right now, is that they have 4 lines that can all make an impact in the game. They can all score. There's really no deficiencies when you go 1 through 4. Like, you could put that 4th line out there at any point during the game and really feel comfortable that they're going to get the job done. So I don't see Matthew Joseph moving up. I think they really like the connection that he has with Anthony Cirelli. I think they like the dynamic they have on that line with Alex Killorn. And I think they just like the way the offense is performing right now, the way the 4 lines are currently constructed. So unless you see them go on some kind of a tailspin these next 2 or 3 games where they put up 2 goals combined in the next 3 games and they're really struggling offensively, I don't think you'll see the forward lines change too much, barring any kind of injury.
All right, so let's look to tonight's game against the surprising Buffalo Sabres. And we mentioned this before, Burnsy. If the season ended today, they'd be the second wild card. Montreal would be the first, and Buffalo would be the second. And it's funny because I think in our first Bolts Breakdown we said that both of the wild card teams would probably come from the Metropolitan Division.
Yeah.
And if the season ended now, they'd both come from the Atlantic. So pretty cool there. But a good young team. They've come back in their last 2 victories against Montreal and Vancouver. What are the 3 keys to victory tonight for the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Yeah, we've kind of felt like the last couple seasons Buffalo might be that breakout team, and now it seems like they're starting to fulfill a little bit of that destiny of what everybody else has been seeing as far as the guys that they've acquired. from having these top draft picks for the last few years, and now it's all starting to come to fruition. But for me, for the Lightning, big key for me is just have to play a full 60 minutes, and we alluded to it earlier about what happened in the Ottawa game and how they let that one get away from them. But if you get a lead on these guys and you're leading after the second period, you need to put that foot on the gas pedal and really see that victory all the way through. Don't just expect that the Buffalo is going to lay down and let you win if you have a multiple goal lead going into the third period. Really want to see this team have that killer instinct. And I think, if they do get that multi-goal lead, I think you'll see that tonight. I think they learned their lesson from that Ottawa game. Number 2 for me is play with the lead. I know it hasn't been too big of a hindrance for the Lightning. I think they've given up the first goal in 7 of the last 8 games, and they've played well despite that. They've shown they have the ability to come back from those games. But when you look at Buffalo's record, they're 7-0-2 when they score the first goal. They're 2-6-0 when they give up the first goal. So haven't had a regulation loss yet when they score the first goal. So I think, especially being on the road, I think it'll be imperative for the Lightning to get that opening goal, play with the lead, not have to chase the game the whole time. And also maybe demoralize Buffalo a little bit. They're a younger team. If a team like the Lightning that everybody knows is one of the best teams in the NHL, if they can get a lead, you wonder if that gets into Buffalo's head a little bit and they're not able to recover from that. And just third for me, have that road game mentality. I know this team has been pretty good on the road this season. They come into this having won 2 straight on the road, 5 of their last 6. But they need to start this road trip with that road game mentality, and that means playing solid, no fancy passes like we see at Amalie Arena quite a bit. Play a simple game, play a smart game. Get net front presence. You're not going to score a lot of those fancy goals, but sometimes you have to score some of the greasy goals.
Yeah, do them ugly.
Do whatever you have to do. Shots from the point, get in front, look for that rebound. But just play that solid, smart, simple road game to start this, and then once you get your feet into it, then maybe some of your skill can take over.
Yeah, and shout out to Brad watching us from Spokane, Washington, up in Tyler Johnson country. Again, let us know where you're watching Bolts Breakdown from, and also share this and let us know that you shared it on your Facebook, especially with the big news today of Erik Cernak being called up. My one guy to watch, Casey Middlestat, young kid, 19 years old. This guy is just getting better and better every single game for Buffalo, and just like the comment here, Buffalo is the comeback kids. Tampa can't back off if they want the win. I just mentioned it before. They won. They came back in their win against Montreal, and then the other night against Vancouver. They were down 3-1 with just 2.5 minutes left, and they were able to tie that game up before winning it in the shootout. And this is a team, when you're watching this, you have the Middlestat, you have Jack Eichel. I love the acquisition of Jeff Skinner, former Rookie of the Year.
I wish the Lightning maybe would have made a play.
Yeah, there's a guy that Rookie of the Year for the Carolina Hurricanes, and went out to Buffalo, and they're just putting the right pieces around. They have some. I like the young blue liner, the Rasmus Ristolainen. They got some other veterans on that backup, but still, any updates for Andre Palat?
Yeah, no
Nothing
real
yet,
updates.
Right?
He was
probably going to be a couple more weeks.
Yeah,
right?
they announced 4 weeks. That was
last week.
Yeah,
less than less than a week, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only a couple
Or maybe
days
a week,
ago.
yeah.
That they announced 4
Yeah.
weeks.
So 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of time. You're probably not going to see him until after Thanksgiving, I would say.
Yeah. So
When
again,
is Thanksgiving?
yeah,
next week?
Thanksgiving next Thursday, man.
Jesus
You got any
Christ.
plans for Thanksgiving? What are you guys doing?
We got home games Wednesday and Friday.
That's
So
right.
We're going to
Can't
stay
do
here
much.
and do a Friends Thanksgiving on Thursday.
Friendsgiving with
Yeah.
the Burns fam. Friends fan. You know how they do it. But yeah, definitely not an easy game for the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. This Buffalo team they're just getting better and better and better, and they're a team their confidence is growing. But I think the big key is one of your keys, Bryan, is to get that early goal.
Yeah.
And a lot of times this team is good enough, talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning, to be able to make up for going down 1-0, but it's really not a formula for success. You want to try to win and play a full 60 minutes, another one of your keys, and the way you do that is by jumping out early. And I think that's a key, too, is you can demoralize this team a little bit. They're still trying to kind of find their way and to find, how good this team really is. And I know they are the comeback kids, but it's different when you're playing Vancouver than if you're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, and the Lightning have had really good success against Buffalo over the last few seasons. Last season was actually the first time that Buffalo actually made a little bit of noise in the series. I think it was Lightning went 2-1-1 against them. Before that, they had pretty much swept them for the last 3-4 seasons before that. So this is a building where the Lightning have had a lot of success. I want to say they're 16-3-2 against Buffalo over the last what is that 21 games. So
they
they've had
16.
Huh?
What? Say it again.
16, 3-2.
21 games. Yeah. Math major Brian Burns, not a math major. Jay Recher.
So good success. Lightning play well against Buffalo. They play well in Buffalo. So you hope to see that can continue this year.
Without a doubt. And again, Erik Cernak being called up. Not sure yet if he'll be in the lineup. We'll have to keep an eye out on Twitter and all the information there. That's Brian Burns, beat writer for TampaBayLightning.com. Make sure you go to TampaBayLightning.com for all the best news and notes, especially if a guy like Erik Cernak is going to play tonight. Follow him, B Burns NHL. Follow the team, TB Lightning. You can follow me on Twitter at JRecher. Follow the station at 620 WDAE. Go to 620WDAE.com for the best Bolts coverage on TV tonight. I believe it's on NBC Sports Network tonight at 7:30, and you can always hear it up the dial on our sister station, 970 WFLA. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Burnsy and I. We're back here, Thursday?
Yeah, we'll be back Thursday.
We're back here Thursday.
Pittsburgh on Thursday.
Pittsburgh. Uh-oh. Who knows? We might have some breaking news for you by then.
Yeah, the last 2 shows we've had something breaking.
That's right. That's why you got to tune in to Bolts Breakdown. That's why you got to share this thing and get that word out. All right, that's Burns. That's Brian. I was going to say Burnsy, so Brian and Burnsy together. That's Burnsy. You know his name. You know mine. We'll see you guys next time. Bolts Breakdown.